And for the final debate of the semester, Mr. Thompson announced, his eyes scanning the classroom with barely concealed amusement, Sarah Williams versus Nathan Brooks. Topic: Should social media companies be held responsible for the spread of misinformation? My heart stopped. Across the room, I caught Nathan's eye, seeing my own panic reflected there. Of all the possible pairings in advanced debate class, this was the one we'd been dreading. You see, Nathan and I had been secretly dating for the past 3 months. Not because we were ashamed, but because we enjoyed having something that was just ours in the fishbowl environment of Roosevelt High School, where everyone knew everything about everyone else. Well, almost everyone knew everything. Miss Williams, you'll be arguing the affirmative position, Mr. Thompson continued, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Brooks, the negative. You have 1 week to prepare. I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral while my mind raced. 1 week to prepare arguments against my boyfriend, the same boyfriend who'd spent last night sharing my mom's famous chocolate chip cookies while we watched reruns of The West Wing and practiced our debate techniques. The same boyfriend who, 3 months ago, had turned my world upside down in the most unexpected way. I still remember that day clearly. It was the first meeting of the school newspaper, where I was the newly appointed editor-in-chief and Nathan was our star political columnist. He'd walked in wearing his signature navy blue blazer, which I later learned he wore when he was nervous, carrying a stack of research papers about the local school board elections. These might interest you, he'd said, placing them on my desk. I found some discrepancies in the budget allocations. I'd looked up, ready to dismiss him with my usual professional efficiency, but something in his green eyes caught me off guard. There was intelligence there, yes, but also a hint of mischief that made my heart do an unexpected flip. Discrepancies? I'd managed to say. The kind that might make an interesting front-page story. He'd smiled then, not his debate team smile that could charm judges and intimidate opponents, but something softer, more genuine. Want to grab coffee and go through them? That coffee turned into dinner, which turned into a 3-hour conversation about everything from political corruption to our shared love of classic movies. By the end of the night, I knew I was in trouble. Nathan Brooks was supposed to be my rival. We'd been competing for top spots in debate tournaments since freshman year. He was the conservative pragmatist to my liberal idealist, the logical counterpoint to my emotional appeals. We'd argued about everything from climate change policy to school dress codes. But that night, I saw a different side of him. The side that volunteered at the local animal shelter. The side that helped his single mom raise his 2 younger sisters. The side that dreamed of becoming a civil rights lawyer not for the prestige, but because he genuinely wanted to help people. Why have we never really talked before? I'd asked as he walked me home. Maybe because we were too busy trying to beat each other, he'd replied with a wry smile. Or maybe because I was too nervous to talk to you outside of debates. You? Nervous? I'd laughed. Mister, I can argue both sides of any issue without breaking a sweat? You have that effect on me. He'd said it so quietly I almost missed it. Almost. That was the moment everything changed. Standing under the streetlight on my quiet suburban street, looking at this boy I'd thought I had all figured out, realizing I didn't know him at all, and wanting desperately to change that. We'd kept our relationship secret mostly because of the debate team. Coach Martinez had strict rules about team members dating, something about it affecting competitive dynamics. Plus, there was something exciting about sneaking around, stealing kisses in empty classrooms, sending coded text messages that looked like debate prep to anyone else. Only my best friend Rachel knew the truth. She'd caught us holding hands in the library's political science section and had nearly blown our cover with her excited squeal. This is like Romeo and Juliet meets the good wife, she declared after swearing to keep our secret. More like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington meets Pride and Prejudice, I'd corrected, making Nathan laugh. But now, watching Mr. Thompson assign debate topics to other pairs in the class, our secret relationship felt less like an exciting romance and more like a ticking time bomb. Because here's the thing about debating Nathan Brooks, he's brilliant. Ruthlessly logical, incredibly well-researched, and capable of dismantling even the strongest arguments with surgical precision. It's one of the things I love about him. But it's also terrifying when you're on the opposite side. After class, we met in our usual spot, the ancient oak tree behind the science building where no one ever went during lunch. "This is bad," I said as soon as he sat down beside me. "Like, potentially catastrophic bad." Nathan took my hand, his thumb tracing familiar patterns on my palm. "It's just another debate, Sarah." "Is it?" "Because last time we debated each other, before we were dating, you brought up that editorial I wrote freshman year about mandatory recycling programs. The one that still makes me cringe." In my defense, it was a really poorly researched editorial. I punched his arm lightly. Not helping. He caught my hand and pulled me closer. "Look, maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's time to stop hiding." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I love you. And I'm tired of pretending I don't in public." The words hit me like a physical force. We hadn't said that yet, "I love you." We'd been dancing around it for weeks, but neither of us had taken that final step. And here he was, saying it for the first time under an oak tree during lunch break, moments after being assigned to debate against me. Before I could respond, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Nathan squeezed my hand once more before standing up. "Think about it," he said softly. "About telling everyone. Because no debate topic is worth hiding how I feel about you." As I watched him walk away, his navy blazer disappearing into the crowd of students, I realized we were facing something much bigger than a class debate. We were facing a choice: keep our comfortable secret, or risk everything for the chance to be honest about who we were and what we meant to each other. What I didn't know then was that this debate would test not just our arguments, but our relationship itself. And that sometimes, the hardest debates are the ones we have with our own hearts. "He said I love you and you just froze?" Rachel stared at me across her bedroom floor, where we were supposedly studying for our AP government test. Sarah Williams, debate champion and wordsmith extraordinaire, had nothing to say? I groaned and flopped back onto her plush carpet. The bell rang. What was I supposed to do? Say it back? Skip class? Pull a romantic comedy moment and chase him through the hallway declaring your undying love? This isn't a movie, Ratch. I sat up, hugging one of her throw pillows. This is real life, with real consequences. If we go public now, right before this debate, then what? The debate police will arrest you? She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Coach Martinez could kick us off the team. We could lose our spots at state finals. And you know how important that is for college applications. Rachel's expression softened. Honey, you got into Columbia early decision. Nathan's going to Stanford. The debate team isn't going to make or break your futures anymore. She was right, of course. But it wasn't just about debate team rules or college applications. It was about something deeper, something I wasn't quite ready to admit. Later that night, as I was researching social media regulation cases for the debate, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Just found a Supreme Court case that completely destroys your potential argument about Section 230. Want to come over and let me spoil all your debate prep? Mom's making lasagna. I smiled despite myself. This was so typically Nathan, using legal precedents as flirting material. I texted back. Trying to sabotage me with pasta and case law? That's fighting dirty, Brooks. His response came quickly, all's fair in love and debate. Besides, we need to talk about what happened today. My heart skipped. There it was, the conversation I'd been avoiding. I took a deep breath and replied. Be there in 20. Nathan's house was a cozy two-story colonial on the edge of town. His mom, Dr. Brooks, she was a psychology professor at the local community college, answered the door with her usual warm smile. Sarah. Perfect timing, the lasagna's just coming out of the oven. Nathan's in his room, allegedly doing debate prep, though I heard him playing that Hamilton soundtrack again. I climbed the familiar stairs to Nathan's room, where I found him surrounded by stacks of legal documents, his laptop open to a Supreme Court transcript, and yes, nonstop playing softly in the background. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Hamilton for debate prep? Hey, if you can't find inspiration in a rap battle about the foundation of our national banking system, you're not trying hard enough. He cleared some papers off his bed, making space for me to sit. Besides, I needed something to distract me from thinking about lunch. There it was again, the elephant in the room. I sat down, picking up one of his research papers to avoid meeting his eyes. Sarah, he said softly. About what I said. Did you mean it? The question came out before I could stop it. Of course I meant it. He moved to sit beside me, taking the paper from my hands. I've probably been in love with you since that time in sophomore year when you destroyed Jensen High's star debater with a Jane Austen quote. I couldn't help but laugh. That was a good moment. It was brilliant. You're brilliant. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch making my skin tingle. And I'm tired of pretending I don't notice how brilliant you are just because we're in public. Nathan. I started, but he continued. I know you're worried about the debate team. About what people will think. But I've been thinking, maybe this debate is exactly why we should tell everyone. What do you mean? We're both good debaters because we're passionate about finding truth, about standing up for what we believe in. So why are we hiding something that's true? Something we believe in? I looked at him then, really looked at him. At the boy who could argue circles around anyone but chose to be gentle with me. Who wore blazers when he was nervous and knew all the words to Hamilton. Who loved me enough to say it first, even knowing I might not say it back. I love you too, I whispered. His face broke into that soft, real smile I'd fallen for 3 months ago. Yeah. Yeah. I took his hand, intertwining our fingers. And you're right. About being tired of hiding. About standing up for what we believe in. So we tell people? We tell people. I squeezed his hand. But not until after the debate. Why? Because, I grinned, I want to absolutely destroy you in front of everyone first. Can't have people thinking love makes me soft. He laughed and pulled me closer. There's my competitive girlfriend. So, about that Supreme Court case. We spent the next few hours actually doing debate prep, sharing lasagna and legal arguments, occasionally getting distracted by kisses that tasted like Mrs. Brooks' garlic bread. It was perfect, right until Nathan's 12-year-old sister Emma burst in without knocking. Mom wants to know if Sarah's staying for my God. We sprang apart, but it was too late. Emma stood in the doorway, her eyes wide as saucers, a huge grin spreading across her face. Emma, Nathan said quickly, it's not. You're dating, she squealed. Wait until I tell Katie and Madison. The debate team's Romeo and Juliet. This is better than my TikToks. Emma, wait. But she was already gone, her footsteps thundering down the stairs, presumably to tell her middle school friends all about her brother's secret romance. Nathan and I looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Well, he said, looks like the universe has other plans for our big reveal. What we didn't know then was that Emma's discovery was just the beginning. Because sometimes the hardest part of keeping a secret isn't the hiding, it's dealing with what happens when the truth starts to come out. And as we sat there, surrounded by debate research and the remnants of our private world, we had no idea that the real challenge was yet to come. News travels fast in high school, but middle school gossip moves at light speed. By the time I got to school the next morning, it felt like everyone was staring at me. Whispers followed me down the hallway. Did you hear about Sarah and Nathan? The debate team rivals? Emma Brooks' TikTok has like 1,000 views already. I found Nathan waiting at my locker, looking simultaneously apologetic and amused. So, Emma's post went viral in the middle school circuit. Apparently, we're trending locally under #DebateTeamRomance. Great, I groaned, opening my locker. Just what we needed 3 days before the big debate. Has Coach Martinez seen it? Not yet, but. Williams. Brooks. My office, now. We turned to see Coach Martinez striding down the hallway, her usual clipboard replaced by a phone displaying what was unmistakably Emma's TikTok video. The one where she dramatically reenacted finding us in Nathan's room, complete with romantic background music and way too many heart emojis. Coach's office was cramped, filled with debate trophies and motivational posters about the power of persuasion. Nathan and I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chairs while she paced behind her desk. 3 months, she finally said, turning to face us. You've been dating for 3 months and thought no one would find out? We were going to tell you, I started. After the Thompson debate, Nathan added. The Thompson debate. Coach sat down heavily. Do you have any idea what this looks like? My two best debaters, secretly dating, now facing each other in the most important grade of the semester? It won't affect our performance, Nathan assured her. Really? She raised an eyebrow. Because last time you two debated, before you were dating, it got pretty heated. The climate change argument? Ring any bells? I winced, remembering. Nathan and I had gotten so intense that Mr. Thompson had to cut us off mid-rebuttal. It was actually that passion, that intensity, that had first drawn us to each other. That was different, I said. We're different now. Exactly my point. Coach leaned forward. You're not just debaters anymore. You're emotionally involved. How can I trust that this debate will be fair? That your personal feelings won't influence your arguments? Because we respect each other too much to give anything less than our best, Nathan said firmly. And isn't that what debate is really about? Respecting the opposition enough to engage honestly with their ideas? I looked at him, feeling a surge of pride and affection. This was the Nathan I'd fallen in love with, principled, passionate, always finding the perfect argument. Coach Martinez was quiet for a moment, studying us. Finally, she sighed. You know I'll have to tell Mr. Thompson. We know, I said. And you'll both have to sign ethics agreements stating that you've disclosed your relationship and will maintain professional conduct during the debate. We nodded. And if I see even a hint of personal feelings affecting your performance? You won't, we said in unison. She shook her head, but I could see the hint of a smile. Get out of here. And Brooks? Tell your sister to take down that TikTok. In the hallway, Nathan took my hand, our first public display of affection at school. Well, that went better than expected. Better than expected? I squeezed his hand. The whole school knows Coach Martinez is watching us like a hawk, and your sister has turned us into a social media sensation. Yeah, but now I can do this whenever I want. He pulled me close and kissed me, right there in the middle of the hallway. Whistles and cheers erupted around us. I heard Rachel's distinctive finally, from somewhere in the crowd. When we broke apart, I saw Mr. Thompson standing at the end of the hall, watching us with an unreadable expression. My stomach dropped. But instead of looking angry, he just smiled and shook his head, muttering something that looked suspiciously like I knew it before walking away. The rest of the day was a blur of congratulations, teasing, and endless questions about how we'd kept it secret for so long. Our debate teammates were particularly dramatic about it. This explains so much, exclaimed Lily Chen, our team secretary. Like why Nathan suddenly started agreeing with Sarah's stance on environmental regulations. I did not. Nathan protested. You totally did, I grinned. Your last editorial was practically a love letter to carbon tax credits. It was a well-researched position paper, he insisted, but his ears were turning red. By the time we met for debate prep after school, it felt like a weight had been lifted. We could finally be ourselves, no more hiding or pretending. But as we sat in the library, surrounded by our research materials, reality set in. We still had to debate each other in 2 days. And now everyone would be watching, not just to evaluate our arguments, but to see how our relationship would affect our performance. They're expecting a show, Nathan said, voicing what we were both thinking. Either we'll go easy on each other because we're in love, or we'll tear each other apart to prove we're not letting our relationship affect us. So what do we do? He reached across the table and took my hand. We do what we always do, we prepare thoroughly, we argue honestly, and we trust each other to handle it. I nodded, but something was nagging at me. Nathan? What if this debate does change things between us? What do you mean? What if we get too competitive? What if one of us says something we can't take back? What if? He cut me off with a quick kiss. Sarah Williams, I fell in love with you because of your passion for debate, not in spite of it. Whatever happens in that classroom on Friday, it won't change how I feel about you. I wanted to believe him. But as we dove back into our research, I couldn't shake the feeling that this debate was about to test our relationship in ways we hadn't anticipated. What I didn't know then was that the real challenge wouldn't come from the debate itself, but from something much more unexpected. Something that would force us to choose between our principles and our hearts. Friday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy usually reserved for championship matches. The classroom was packed. Apparently, news of the debate couple had spread beyond just our school. I spotted several students from rival schools in the back row, and was that a reporter from the local paper? Don't look now, Rachel whispered as we took our seats, but Principal Anderson just walked in with the superintendent. Great. No pressure or anything. Nathan caught my eye from across the room and gave me a reassuring smile. He was wearing his lucky navy blazer, and despite everything, the sight of it made my heart flutter. 3 months of dating, and he still had that effect on me. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. Today's debate topic: should social media companies be held legally responsible for the spread of misinformation on their platforms? Miss Williams will argue the affirmative, Mr. Brooks the negative. Standard format, 5 minutes each for opening statements, followed by rebuttals and cross-examination. I stood up, smoothing my skirt and taking my place at the podium. This was familiar territory. This was what I was good at. I could do this. In an age where information spreads faster than truth can put on its shoes, I began, quoting a modified version of Mark Twain, we must ask ourselves, who bears responsibility for the consequences of viral falsehoods? I launched into my argument, citing recent cases of election interference, public health misinformation during the pandemic, and the real-world violence triggered by online conspiracy theories. My voice grew stronger as I spoke, passion building with each point. These platforms have become our modern public square, yet they operate with impunity while society bears the cost of their negligence. It's time for accountability. When I finished my opening statement, there was a moment of silence before the applause started. I caught Nathan's eye again. He was smiling that proud smile that always made me weak in the knees. But there was something else in his expression too. Determination. He stood up, adjusting his blazer. My opponent makes a compelling emotional appeal, he began, and my heart squeezed at the formal address. But emotion must not override reason when discussing fundamental questions of free speech and technological innovation. What followed was possibly the most brilliant defense of Section 230 I'd ever heard. He systematically dismantled my arguments about responsibility, highlighting the practical impossibility of monitoring all content, the chilling effect on free speech, and the potential for government overreach. In seeking to solve one problem, we risk creating a dozen more. The cure, in this case, would be worse than the disease. The debate heated up during cross-examination. We traded points about algorithm transparency, content moderation policies, and the balance between free expression and public safety. Neither of us held back. We couldn't, not with everyone watching. How do you respond to the Facebook whistleblower's testimony about the platforms aware of its harmful effects? I challenged. How would your proposed regulations affect small startups trying to compete with established platforms? He countered. We were in our element, the familiar dance of point and counterpoint, thesis and antithesis. It was exhilarating, and for a moment, I forgot about our relationship, about the audience, about everything except the pure intellectual thrill of matching wits with a worthy opponent. Then came the moment that changed everything. During his rebuttal, Nathan brought up a recent local case, one involving a teenage suicide linked to social media bullying. It was a powerful example for his side, showing how content moderation could have unintended consequences. But as he spoke, I saw something flicker across his face. He faltered slightly, and suddenly I remembered, his sister Emma had been friends with the girl who died. This wasn't just a debate point for him. This was personal. Without thinking, I stood up. Point of personal privilege, I interrupted, breaking protocol. Mr. Thompson looked startled. Miss Williams? I request a 5-minute recess. Nathan was staring at me, a mix of confusion and gratitude in his eyes. Mr. Thompson must have seen something in our expressions because he nodded. 5-minute recess, he announced. Everyone stay in your seats. I rushed to Nathan's side, ignoring the whispers and stares. You okay? I whispered. He nodded, but I could see his hands trembling slightly. I didn't think it would hit me like that. Emma was devastated when Sarah died, and I know. I took his hand, not caring who saw. We don't have to use that case. There are other examples. But it's the strongest argument for my position, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And isn't that what debate is about? Using the most compelling evidence, even when it's difficult? Before I could respond, Mr. Thompson approached us. Everything all right? I looked at Nathan, then made a decision that would change everything. Mr. Thompson, I need to amend my position. What? Nathan and Mr. Thompson said simultaneously. The resolution asks if social media companies should be held responsible. But maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the real debate should be about how we create a digital world that protects both free speech and human lives. Nathan's right, it's not just about legal responsibility. It's about moral responsibility, about community, about finding solutions that don't just assign blame but actually prevent tragedies. The classroom was silent, everyone watching this unexpected turn of events. Miss Williams, Mr. Thompson said slowly, are you conceding the debate? I looked at Nathan, who was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between awe and understanding. No, I said firmly. I'm proposing a synthesis. Because sometimes the most important part of a debate isn't winning, it's finding the truth together. What happened next would become legend in Roosevelt High's debate team history. But more importantly, it would teach us all something about love, integrity, and the courage to choose what's right over what's expected. The silence in the classroom was deafening after my proposal. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses, something he always did when faced with an unexpected situation. Mr. Brooks, he said finally, would you like to respond to Miss Williams' suggestion? Nathan stood up, and I held my breath. This was completely off script, breaking every debate rule we'd ever learned. But when he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. I would like to accept my opponent's proposal, he said. And I'd like to add something. The case I mentioned earlier, about Sarah Chen, it wasn't just a debate point. She was my sister's friend, and her death changed how I view this entire issue. Maybe that makes me biased, but maybe that's exactly what this debate needs, a reminder that behind every policy discussion are real people with real stories. Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. Well, this is certainly unprecedented. But then again, he smiled slightly, so is this entire situation. Please proceed with your joint resolution. What followed was unlike any debate our school had ever seen. Instead of arguing against each other, Nathan and I began building something together, a comprehensive proposal for a new approach to social media governance. We combined my points about accountability with his concerns about innovation and free speech, creating a framework that acknowledged the complexity of the issue while offering practical solutions. The key, I explained, getting excited as our ideas flowed together, is creating a system of graduated responsibility. Larger platforms with more influence would have greater obligations, while smaller platforms would have more flexibility to innovate. But with clear guidelines and support systems in place, Nathan added, so companies know exactly what's expected of them, and users know their rights and responsibilities too. We went back and forth, building on each other's points, filling in gaps, addressing potential problems. It wasn't a debate anymore, it was a collaboration, a demonstration of how two different perspectives could come together to create something better than either could achieve alone. The audience was captivated. I saw Coach Martinez in the back, trying to hide a proud smile. Principal Anderson was taking notes. Even the reporter from the local paper was scribbling furiously. When we finished, Mr. Thompson stood up. In my 20 years of teaching debate, I've never seen anything quite like this. What started as a traditional debate became something much more valuable, a lesson in finding common ground, in using personal experience to inform policy discussions, and in having the courage to change course when necessary. He paused, looking between us. I think it's fair to say you both win this one. The classroom erupted in applause. I felt tears in my eyes as Nathan crossed the room and pulled me into a hug, not caring who was watching. You amazing, brilliant, wonderful person, he whispered in my ear. Thank you for seeing what I needed before I even knew it myself. After class, as the room was clearing out, the reporter approached us. That was incredible, she said. Would you be willing to do an interview? I think your story, both the debate and the relationship, could inspire a lot of people. We looked at each other and smiled. Sure, I said. But can we include Emma in the interview? After all, she's the one who started this whole public revelation. The resulting article, titled Love and Debate: How Two High School Students Turned Competition into Collaboration, went viral in educational circles. We were invited to speak at other schools about combining academic excellence with emotional intelligence, about the importance of viewing opponents as people first. But the real victory came a few weeks later, when we presented our social media governance proposal to the school board. They were so impressed that they implemented our guidelines for the district's social media policies, creating a model that other schools began to adopt. Emma's following on TikTok exploded, especially after she posted a series about how her shipping the debate team rivals actually led to positive change in their community. She's still insufferably proud of her role in our story. At graduation that spring, Mr. Thompson asked us to give a joint speech. Standing at the podium together, looking out at our classmates and families, I felt Nathan squeeze my hand. When Mr. Thompson assigned us to debate each other that day, I began, we thought we had to choose between our relationship and our principles. What we learned, Nathan continued, was that the strongest relationships aren't about avoiding conflicts or competition. They're about facing challenges together, about being willing to see beyond your own perspective. Sometimes, I added, the best arguments aren't won or lost, they're transformed into something new when two people are brave enough to listen to each other. That fall, we headed off to different colleges, me to Columbia, Nathan to Stanford. But we approached the distance like we approached that debate, as a challenge to face together, an opportunity to grow while staying connected. We still debate, of course. About politics, about movies, about where to go for dinner when we're both home for breaks. But now every debate ends with both of us winning, because we've learned that the best victories are the ones you share. Looking back, that debate class taught us something far more valuable than rhetorical skills. It taught us that love doesn't mean always agreeing, it means respecting each other enough to disagree honestly, support each other unconditionally, and always be willing to find new solutions together. And sometimes, when I watch Nathan arguing passionately about something, usually wearing that same navy blazer, I think about how lucky I am to have found someone who challenges me to be better, supports me when I take risks, and loves me enough to break the rules of debate when it really matters. Because in the end, the best relationships are like the best debates, they push us to think deeper, speak more truthfully, and become more than we ever thought we could be. As for Mr. Thompson, he still uses our debate as an example in his classes, though the story gets a little more dramatic with each retelling. But that's okay, some stories deserve to become legends, especially ones that remind us that love and principles don't have to be opposing sides of an argument. Sometimes they're just different parts of the same winning case.